Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where workplace drama is like reality TV, unpredictable, entertaining, and sometimes you just can't look away. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Did you know that workplace drama costs businesses billions in lost productivity each year? What does it cost you? Today, we're discussing the importance of effectively managing that workplace drama, getting rid of it, and its impact on team dynamics and productivity. And, today's guest will help us turn drama into harmony. Workplace drama can manifest in various forms: conflicts between team members, rampant gossip, or unhealthy competition. A little backstabbing action going on. These scenarios create tension, sometimes a lot of it, and disrupt the workflow, making it challenging for leaders to maintain a cohesive and productive team. Anybody felt that? Maybe in your company, maybe in previous companies, the corporate world. Leaders often face dilemmas in resolving these issues without escalating the situation further. Ignoring workplace drama can lead to a toxic environment, decreased morale, and high employee turnover. I used to hope it would just go away on its own, and it didn't. So how can you handle these challenges effectively? When we think about, why not to just let it go? Workplace drama creates decreased morale for sure. Unresolved conflicts and gossip can create a hostile work environment, lowers overall team morale. So it doesn't even have to be the people involved in it. It can just be collateral damage. And when employees feel undervalued or targeted, their motivation and engagement just drop through the floor. They're done. The second, productivity loss, which is huge, is drama distracts employees from what they really want to be doing, actually getting stuff done, and leads to a loss in productivity across the board. Again, whether they're involved in it or whether it's just happening around them. But teams embroiled in conflict spend more time dealing with personal issues than focusing on work. I don't know if you've experienced that. You get two teams that are at each other all the time or pointing fingers. That's rough. And then issue escalation. Small misunderstandings, disagreements can escalate into larger conflicts if they're not addressed quickly. And that can result in fractured teams, reduced collaboration, and a major breakdown in trust among employees. A number of years ago, I had a situation with two people on the executive team, and they were just at each other all the time. It was, drama, chameleon. Anyway, you get it. Both of them were absolutely fantastic and worked super well with the rest of the team, but they absolutely could not get along with each other. They just hated each other. I don't know why. They just did. And I tried a few things and it didn't really work. My only solution was, to get rid of one of them. As the nuclear option. It's not a good option at all. And it did sort of solve the problem, but it caused a ripple effect among the rest of the team. Why did you get rid of that person? Why didn't you get rid of this person? And it almost blew up the entire team, because the real issue was I let it go on too long. I wanted to keep both of them because they were really good and tried to make peace. And should have just addressed it much, much sooner and probably much more firmly than I did, because I just wanted it to resolve itself. Everybody get along and, let's do stuff and create awesome things. And it just didn't. But that situation almost blew up the entire executive team and some of the other collateral damage too. So we don't want to do that. So what are some creative solutions and strategies for handling that workplace drama? Well, one is open communication. And we talk about this a lot. It's really that culture of transparency and open dialogue. A place where team members feel like they can voice their concerns and feelings without fear of retaliation. They can actually call it like it is and don't have to worry about, what the perception is going to be or how that affects them in the boss's eyes. But they can just, say what's on their mind, what's really going on. Regular check-ins. So this isn't always a public forum, but regular check-ins with your team. Team meetings can help address issues before they escalate, but having those one-on-one conversations can go a long, long way, where people can bring those things up that they don't want to necessarily bring up in front of the entire team. The second is conflict resolution techniques. And our guest will talk more about this today. And I didn't do this well at all, but it's really equipping your team with conflict resolution skills. It took a while, and so part of that experience helped me to start building some of those skills and get some help in that area. Training sessions on effective communication, active listening, empathy can be learned. We'll find out more about that today. All of those can help employees resolve their differences amicably. And as a leader, we have to model those behaviors and set a positive example. And we can't really do that if we don't know how or don't know what it is. The third is to foster a positive work culture. Promoting a culture of respect, inclusivity, collaboration, working together. Don't let those little things escalate, and the little nitpicky things between teams, especially. Recognize and reward positive behavior and teamwork. Create opportunities for team building activities that strengthen relationships and build trust among team members. One thing that we did is actually would do things on a quarterly basis, put teams together, and they would have specific goals. And every quarter would mix up the teams, but people from different departments, all working together toward a common goal. And what it did is it really helped that communication and help people build relationships. Actually you get to know a person, not just, from an email or a Slack message, but you get to know a person, and that really changed the team dynamic overall. Handling workplace drama proactively is essential for maintaining a positive and productive work environment. And that's what we all want. We just don't want the drama. It's one of the reasons we probably became entrepreneurs, was to get away from the drama. But by fostering open communication, teaching conflict resolution techniques, and promoting that healthy work culture, leaders can transform drama into harmony. Our founder on Tuesday was Sethu Meenakshi Sundaram, co-founder of Zaluri. Zaluri collaborates with IT leaders worldwide to optimize their IT stacks and enhance profitability. Sethu and I talked about the founder journey, the power of purpose in a startup, shadow IT, and the emerging problem of shadow AI. Our expert guest last week was Neil Gordon on an incredibly special 200th episode. Neil is an expert at communication with elevating brand status through a compelling story. We talked about silver bullet statements that make prospects lean in, and the distinction between content and context, and how context is what makes the content valuable. If you missed either one of those episodes, go back and give them a listen. So good there. My guest today is Sylvia Lafair, PhD. She is an internationally acclaimed leadership development expert, known for her unique blend of systems theory, pattern awareness, and relational results. Sylvia transforms how leaders navigate communication, collaboration, and conflict. Her award-winning books and tools equip leaders to thrive with innovative thinking and empathy in today's complex workplace. Welcome someone who brings peace and alignment to companies, Sylvia Lafair. Hey, Sylvia, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Well, thank you. I'm ready for this. I'm ready for the fuel. Here we go.
All right, let's do it. Well, what inspired your transition from family therapy to leadership development? And how do family dynamics influence workplace relationships?
Well, there we have something to talk about for days, but I'll start with a quick story.
Definitely.
So I was doing programs. This was in suburban Philadelphia. Along with the family therapy, I was doing programs for different ages of children growing up and relationships. And this happened to be a very major one with parents whose adolescent children were just shaking their heads. That never changes. It may be bad now. It was bad, 20 years ago when I made the transition, and it's been bad forever. Anyway, the room's packed. And at the end of it, some man walked up to me. I thought he was going to talk about either his son or his daughter. And he said, will you come work with my senior leadership team? I mean, it was so out of left field that, I'm going, why? And he said, they're fighting. To which I said, so what? He said, but you work with,
Right.
yeah,
It's
it
like,
was interesting. He said, you work with people who do better if they get along, families. And he said, they're fighting and they need to get along. And I had this moment where I thought, oh, do I really want to take that on? But it seemed very enticing. So I said, sure. So I went in and met with his senior leadership team, lovely people, and they were fighting with each other. And I got them, quote, to play nicely in the sandbox, which is what I did with families, and, taught them some communication skills and worked with conflict resolution. And things got much better. And said, will you work with other parts of the company? And at that point, I was kind of getting the groove with it. And then he told a friend who told a friend. And all of a sudden, I'm looking around, I'm going, and I'm traveling the world at this point, which on their nickel was like a lot of fun. So I was in Switzerland a lot and in England a lot and all over Europe and in India. And I thought, well, here we go. And as I did the work there, all the things about my book, Don't Bring It to Work, started to really crystallize. And I saw that what we learned in our original organization, the family, is what we bring on many ways into our present organization at work. And so far, it's been the truth. So that's how it all started.
definitely. I think that's great. And it's something that is very much needed in the workplace, because it is, we bring things, the way that we grew up, our family dynamic, all of that to work. And we just expect that we're all going to get along and everything's going to work well with all of these different things that we're all bringing, all of the, I don't know if baggage is the right word, but all of the nuances that we bring in, the way that we see the world. And we think that we can just all fit and just everything's going to work perfect. But there's conflict.
Well, baggage is the right word. From I think from the day we're born or the day before we were born, the suitcase is there and we start filling with, they wanted a boy and they got a girl, or, my older sibling is the favored, on and on. And then you get into the workplace and it's just, I have trained quite a few coaches, and it's about the questions you ask. You don't poke in and you're not doing, quote, therapy, but you're gathering information. I'm working with a company right now, and I would say I've talked with 10 people who are on the verge of quitting. And because the CEO is a screamer and he loves very colorful. I don't know if you know any screaming CEOs and founders, but this guy, he's up there. And when I say, where else have you been in your life with someone who's a screamer like that? It's either a mother or a father. And it's been fascinating because I would say these are senior people, and I would say, why can't you say to him, that I don't want to, I don't like the way you're talking to me, or it's really uncomfortable the way you're talking. Oh, I can't do that. Well, how did you do that with whichever parent, their mother or father? Oh, you could never talk to them that way. And I go, well, there you go. So it's almost like they found this place to feel similar, not comfortable, but similar, and they haven't been able to resolve it. So we've been working with it now that they're beginning to see the issues. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. It really does. Your book, you mentioned it, Don't Bring It to Work, and highlights the importance of recognizing family patterns at work. And I thought it was an interesting title because we do bring it to work. But then how do we, what do we do with that? Because it really also emphasizes kind of recognizing and breaking patterns that limit success.
Well,
so how does that work when we do bring it in?
What happens, and I'll put a little plug in for the book, is it gives a bazillion examples, Jeff, in the book, and every story in there is true. And I would go and ask whoever I was writing the story about, even though I changed names, and sometimes I even changed industries to make it more comfortable for the person. And they would all say, use it in the book, use it in the book. All the stories are true. And it's really interesting. I'm just going to tell you one quick one, because this is how I started to develop the 13 patterns. And if anybody who's listening or watching your podcast would like a quick sheet of the 13 patterns, they can email me at sylvia@ceoptions.com. I mean, I prefer they'd read the book, but I'll give them the cheat sheet. And I came up with 13 patterns, from the super achiever, the me guy or gal who always has to be first, and they don't want to listen to anybody else. And in a meeting room, when that guy or gal starts to talk, everybody is rolling their eyes going, oh, are they going to keep it up, or who's going to, and nobody stops them. But it comes from the roles they played as children. And so when I started, when I wrote Don't Bring It to Work, is it the best title? It's Don't Bring It to Work is a good thing not to bring to work. And the subtitle is Breaking the Family Patterns That Limit Success, because it does get in the way if you don't work on some kind of resolution. And the patterns that show up are really important, because everybody's going to have one or two that I call them sticky. They belong to you or me, and some are more female oriented, some are a little more male oriented, but there's this in between. For argument's sake, the pleaser is often a female thing, and it's changing. We're in a change process, but often the pleaser was somebody at work who, whatever you ask them to do, they say, sure, of course, I'll do it. In their mind, they're saying, are you out of your mind? Are you crazy? I can't do that. But they would never say it, right? Any pleasers?
It's really important to pay attention to those things and to understand the patterns and to recognize that, because I've done that in the past. And you want to give to the person that's going to say yes, and they always say yes, but you have to take a step back and go, now wait a second. I know if I ask them, they're going to say yes, but are they the right person? Should I do that? Are they already overloaded? And so just kind of taking a step back and really thinking about just the workplace dynamic, because there are definitely those who will say yes to everything and they end up getting burned out.
Well, that was brilliant. And you're very smart, because you both know who to go to and that it's not the best way to go. So that's a double win for you. But what's in, I'll just tell you, I will tell you, I'm my background, I'm a drama queen, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But I was in a meeting, and so I'm going to tell a quick story. And the owner of the company loved to buy other businesses. I mean, it was like the shiny object syndrome, and he had a lot of money and he just kept buying businesses, but his staff was drowning. And we were in a meeting, and his senior gal had been through our Total Leadership Connections program. So she's sitting there, and he turned to her and he said, well, Laura, I'm just ready to buy this other blah, blah company. And she looked at him and she said, it won't work. And the room froze, because she'd say, oh, great. Yes, we can do it. She said, it won't work. And he looked at her and he said, you never said that before. So what we did was we took a coffee break and a bio break. And the owner and this gal and I went into a room, and he said, I don't get it. You always say yes to everything. And she said, well, but I'm giving up my pleaser personality, and pleasers transformed become truth tellers. They no longer
so good.
What I did, Jeff, I just want to put this in, is I got the patterns, the 13 patterns. there were 20 of them, and I moved them around. I said, okay, I couldn't get less than 13. And then I thought, well, if that's all I'm doing, is it worth it? Because it's like standing up. I'm a drama queen, right? So it's like standing up at a meeting and saying, hello, my name is Sylvia and I'm a drama queen. Or hers was, hello, my name is Laura, I'm a pleaser. It's like, okay, and now what? So then I said, okay, when the pattern is transformed, when you've taken it down to begin to look at the connection and begin to make the internal changes, what's the transformation of the pattern? And the pleaser does become a truth teller. So it was very interesting, back to Laura. And she said to the owner of the company, she said, I can't do that anymore. We're drowning in overwork. And my staff is coming to me and they want me to say something. And she said, up till now, I just did whatever you wanted. I can't do it anymore. And she said, if that won't work for you, let me know. And he just looked at her and he looked at me and he said, this is your fault. I said, blame recognized. And what are you going to do about it? And he didn't buy the next business. He didn't do it. And they did very, very well. And people were all beginning to tell the truth more effectively, which is what we want. Story told.
I think that's another pattern, and maybe it's part of the pleaser, but just challenging authority. And some of that can be cultural, some of it can be what you learned in the home, some of it can be the generation you grew up in. It's just challenging authority is really, really difficult for a lot of people.
Well, that pattern we call the rebel, and the rebel. We've gone through iterations of where the rebel fits. We've done it culturally. We've done it through Black Lives Matter. We've done it through the women's movement. And a lot of times I would get called in some fairly large organizations saying, these 4 people want to have a class action suit and sue us. What are we going to do? And we get them together with some of the people in the leadership positions to dialogue and talk about things. And the rebel transformed becomes a community builder. It's like, yeah, you can have a class action suit and maybe you'll get some money and maybe you won't. And, there'll still be bad feelings. But what if we put something together and you guys and gals who are so angry become community builders, and community builders sit and they listen to each other. I mean, I'm a big proponent for people beginning to tell not their whole life story, but aspects of who they are that other people can say, oh, I never thought of it that way before. And that's where transformation comes. It's really, really a stunning thing to be part of. And I've been honored to be part of that in many places and saved companies a lot of money. The lawyers don't like it, but other than that, they're very happy not to have a class action suit. That's another one of the patterns, the rebel.
And so tell me about the rebel.
Well, the rebel often grew up, in a family that was marginalized, and they then have seen it, and it's in and we're seeing so much of it now. And what we've done is we've just created dichotomies. It's either you are on that side, or it's the either or, and it's not healthy. But the rebel who is going to be the one to stand up for women's rights or, Hispanic rights or whatever it is, if they can transform the anger. I'm not suggesting the anger isn't there and it isn't rightful. I'm suggesting it needs to be transformed into something more positive. And we are very disaffected as a culture right now, as a world. It's not pretty. but we need more dialogue and we need more. I don't want to get too deeply into what I'm going to say now, but systems thinking really looks at how things fit together and, how things connect. And the rebel usually can grab onto systems thinking and run with it and make changes, positive changes. So ask me another question.
Well, I like how that it fits together, and it's not just, I am this thing. It's not like, going and taking a personality test and going, this is what I am, and this is what this other person is, and this is maybe how we communicate. But there's a transformation. And so it's taking, here's, understanding, why I think the way I think or why I behave the way I do, and how I can transform that. I think the transformation is the key, and turn that into something that is a positive, turn it into a strength, be able to channel that and use it in a way from, not just a pleaser, but now a truth teller. So there's kind of two sides to that. I really like that transformation.
Well, let me just add this with the truth teller, because it comes with all of them. The rebel becomes a different kind of truth teller. The avoider becomes a different, is telling the truth is not spilling your guts. I mean, it's really important because good. One of the things is truth telling is an art form. And I have sat in meetings and I will literally on my fingers count the number of words in a truth sentence that makes a difference. They're usually 7 to 9 words. They're not run-on sentences and they're not paragraphs. And they rarely are, if you were different. It's about, here is what I see that doesn't work. 8 things. And that's a truth telling. And what I've done in the work is teach people literally how to talk and respond in shorter sentences, but that take the conversation deeper. So I'm going to give anybody who's watching this my 3 words that are, you can take it to the bank. Okay. If somebody's saying something and they're really upset and they take a pause, you're there, whether you're the butt of their upset or somebody else's, is to simply say to them, tell me more. Now, I don't know where this goes in the brain, but I've done it now for years and I do it myself. But I've watched it when in teams, when I'm working with a team and somebody's upset about something and turns to someone and the other person, rather than defend, explain, or justify, simply says, tell me more. The whole conversation goes to a deeper level, meaningful level. It's almost like it opens something in the brain. And I don't know, maybe there's research about it. I haven't found any. But those 3 words are amazing. So I'm giving that to whoever's watching this. Tell me more. Makes a difference.
That's powerful. It really gets down below whatever the surface level issue is, and it just opens the door to really, what's behind that? What's the root issue?
Yeah.
And they get it out of their system. And sometimes that's what they need. Sometimes you really understand what the real problem is underneath that. And that's what we can go solve.
Well, I think that, I think you're a very good leader. I think you have good intuition. And I wish more leaders did. I mean, my screamer leader, he and I have had some disputes because he'd say, well, I know you talked to so-and-so. And he said, you're too soft. And I said, well, the opposite of that is maybe you're not asking the right questions and they see you as too difficult. Well, they have to work more hours and blah, 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 blah. He was driven as a child to prove that he was smart enough. And he hasn't worked it through yet. He's in the process. So we'll see what happens with him. But we do have to go back.
It's definitely it's definitely a process. that you work through? I mean, we bring those things in. How do we avoid replicating negative patterns from our past experiences into our current leadership style?
Well, that's where you need two things. You need the willingness to do some self work, become self aware. It started in the 60s, moved out of their range in the 70s, came back in the 80s and 90s, and then in the 200s. We're back now talking about self awareness. And when we do our leadership program, we haven't done it. It's online now, and it's really good. So I'm suggesting anybody who wants to do it, it's a 4-module program. But when we would do it sitting in a group, this would be you have to become self-aware, which means you get above yourself to look down to see what you're doing and why. And often we can't see it ourselves. So we need somebody else, a colleague, a coach, a sibling who will say, have you done that? And the thing is, I have a theory of 3. If it happens within a couple of days, 3 times, you damn well better pay attention. So I'll tell you my quick drama queen story. Okay. So I'm going to go back and tell you where it started. As a little kid, I have an older brother who was king of the hill, and he became, a pretty well-known doctor. And I was just the cute little girl. And I mean, my brother could say tomorrow's Thursday, and my parents would think it was the most brilliant thing they ever heard. And I would say tomorrow's Thursday, and they go, isn't that nice? Tomorrow's Thursday. And I go, something's wrong with this picture. It was, the boy was it, and the girl was less than. So if I wanted to be heard, I did a hissy fit. And I am telling you, Academy Award hissy fits, because it was the only way I could get heard, right? I grow up. Wow. I'm now doing programs. I'm in the process of putting these patterns together. This was many years ago. And one day socked me between the eyes. Early in the day, I was in a meeting and I was facilitating, and it wasn't going well. And I had a hissy fit. I'm going, what's the matter here? And yada, yada, yada. And as we walked out, somebody said, oh my God, Sylvia, that was overkill. And I thought, well, what do they know? They needed, it's the only way I knew how to get heard, right? So later in the day, same Sylvia, different situation, and conflict was with a different group. And I knew not to raise my hands and get old, but I still had a milder, but I had a hissy fit. And as we walked out, somebody said, oh, we didn't learn anything. You were too noisy in that. And I thought, what do they know? It's twice. That evening, my daughters were both in college at the time. My younger daughter called, and she had an issue she wanted to talk about. And I said, oh, Julie, that's terrible, and blah, blah, blah. And on, I did my thing. And she said, Mom, when you do the drama thing, nobody can really talk. So how about if we hang up and I talk to you a different day? Clink. And I sat there thinking, 3 times, one day, same Sylvia, different circumstances. And that's when I got the drama queen. And I went back and saw, oh my God, yeah, that's how I got it, having hissy fits as a kid to be heard. So again, back to, hello, my name is Sylvia and I'm a drama queen. It wouldn't have been enough, right? So what's the transformation of that kind of drama? And it's to become a good storyteller.
Ready to dominate your market and skyrocket your revenue? Dive into Small Fish, Big Pond, building a world-class business that swims circles around competitors. This book is packed with powerful marketing and leadership lessons guaranteed to transform your business and operate world-class. Small Fish, Big Pond delivers proven strategies to sharpen your marketing message, deliver unmatched value to your clients, and guide your prospects' buying journey to one inevitable conclusion: that your company is the only solution for them. Inside, you'll find step-by-step frameworks and time-tested growth principles to attract your ideal clients, convert them, and then turn them into your passionate brand ambassadors. Get your copy today in print, ebook, or audio at smallfishbigpond.com or on Amazon. And remember, every book sale supports charity. So dive in and make a difference.
And here's the essence of it. When you do that kind of drama, the adrenaline, I mean, it's fun. I have to tell you, it's fun. It doesn't go anywhere. And we're seeing more and more of that now. You know, I don't want to get into politics, but we're seeing more and more of it now with people, you know, screaming and doing the drama. But what does move is when you learn to tell stories, because stories have a purpose. If you can find a story that has a purpose, you're still going to get the adrenaline rush, but for good, not for just making noise. So that's another pattern. So we've got the super achiever, we've got the rebel, we've got the drama queen or king. What do you think you are? I should have sent the list to you so you could look at it. I won't go over the whole list, but
yeah, look. That's really interesting just to think about that, and you know, all the things that I would bring in. So I'll take a look at that. I'll post it in the show notes.
Okay. So I'll tell you, and I'm married to an avoider. And, you know, while the pleaser has very much a female energy to it, because we've been pleasers since the beginning of time, or we would have been thrown out of the tribe and eaten by a bear, a lion, or whatever. So we've learned to be more careful. And they're male pleasers too, of course.
Of course.
But a lot of males have learned to be avoiders so that when the going gets rough, and I've watched that in meetings where I'd sit in a meeting where there's conflict, and there's nothing wrong with conflict. It just has to be we'll use that good word, has to be transformed. And, but an avoider will all of a sudden look at his or her watch. It's mostly males that I've seen this with, and they'll say, "Oh, I've got to leave the meeting. I forgot I had another meeting." Or, you know, I just looked at my watch and where my cell phone and my kid has to be picked up from school early or whatever, or I don't feel well. Avoiders leave. They become initiators. The best word I could come up with. Whereas once you've transformed, and usually avoiders grew up in families where there was a lot of conflict that never got resolved. So they learned if there's conflict, it's always going to stay, and people are going to feel angry with each other. So I better get the heck out of here. And when an avoider can be in a team and accountability, you know, you can use the words, you know, my nature has been to leave the meeting early, but I'm not going to do it. And we're going to stay here till we get finished. So I was doing a meeting. This one's interesting. And it was a sales team, big company, sales team. And one of the guys in the company had been in the NFL. He was a big dude. And, you know, really fun. And you had to like him. But he and one of the gals were having a lot of tension about some stuff about sales. So we took a break. And I said to him, or he came to me and he said, we were at our retreat center. And he said, "Do you have a gym here?" I said, "Well, we have a treadmill." That was about it. So he said, "Can I go into town?" I said, "It will take you too long." He said, "Well, I've got to get this anger out of me." I said, "Well, maybe this time as an avoider, you can do it differently." And there was a big pond at the retreat center. And I said, "Why don't you," and he hated the word I used. I said, "Why don't you walk around the pond slowly?" He was in the NFL. You don't walk slowly. You run like hell to do whatever. He said, "Sylvia, that's impossible." I said, "Give it a shot." So he did. He took, it was about 15 minutes, and I was watching out of the window. I could see him walking. We came back and we started the meeting again. And he and the gal had to finish this conflict. And he said, I said, who wants to start? And he said, I do. He said, I've been avoiding saying anything, and my nature has been to run out of the difficulty. He said, I know how to tackle, I know how to slam people to the ground, but I don't know how to talk through a conflict. And he admitted at that point we had done enough work with the group. He said, and I grew up in a family that didn't know how to do that. He said, so I'm going to give it a shot. And he became the initiator. And the gal sat there with her mouth open because she wanted to attack him, as she could have with words, not physically. And she said, I never thought of it. And when I'm in a meeting and somebody says, I never thought about it that way before, I know we're making success. We're on the route to success. And they solved the problem.
That's really
and the
good.
whole group came together. By the end of that year, they were making more money and getting bonuses that were off the chart. And was it only because of that? It was a big piece that he, from an initiator, from an avoider, became an initiator. So
That's amazing how just a change in that team dynamic can affect the entire organization. And whether that is just in one team or one leader, and just the ripple effect that has in the company and profitability and ideas that come out, and just getting rid of that dysfunction in the team. So many great things happen.
It's been an honor for me to participate and facilitate in these teams. I mean, there have been times in the middle when the tension is really bad that I will tell you my little secret. I'm sitting there, I'm kind of looking fairly neutral, but in my mind, I'm saying, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this. I better go sell sweaters at Nordstrom's. Because you have to, when there's tension and conflict, you're going to go through the ugly middle, and you're going to go through what I call the chasm of chaos, because that's where the things begin to change. So here's how it works. You're looking, and there's where you want to go. There's the vision. We want to make, $2 billion this year. Okay. And you're over here and everybody's working hard. And then all of a sudden people are getting exhausted and they can't work any more hours and people are getting sick. And everybody starts saying it was better the way it was. We can't get there. It's too much. And everybody starts turning back to the past, but you're already in the chasm. And people are miserable and people get sick and people quit. But if you have a few people who can say, no, that's where we're going to go, but we're going to do it differently, you can help pull the other people out of the chasm. And then you start moving along and you say, we'll work differently and we'll do this and you can do that. And and you begin to communicate. And then what happens? You're going to go into another chasm. The good news is it's not as deep and you don't have to stay as long. And then there'll be another one and you're in and out of it. It's like a bleep. And then all of a sudden you can get to the success you want to get to. So you've got to be able to sustain the tension in the conflict, in the chasm of chaos. I hope that makes sense to you.
It does. It definitely does. And that's where growth comes is in doing that. And it's not linear. So you're not like falling into a chasm and just coming back up to level, but it's an upward trajectory. And so it's down and up and down and up. And so, but you're continuing to grow through that every time you come out of that, and you've grown. You have to. I think that's how we get out of the chasm. Is we have to grow, we have to adapt, that's that transformative journey.
But it's also helping each other. You take somebody's hand and say, you're really stuck down there, and 2 or 3 people. And, the image is a great one of being in that chasm and helping each other out.
Yep. Pulling each other out.
I love the way you're pulling it together. You're right on. At least you're agreeing with me, so I like it.
Well, how does stress affect the way that we lead and the way that we influence the team? What does that look like, and how should we be thinking about and dealing with stress?
Well, I wrote the book Invisible Stress. It's Not What You Think during COVID. And I mean, everybody, it was like, I remember turning on the TV. We're in Northern California now, but I was in the East Coast, looking at Manhattan, looking at Fifth Avenue, looking at the Avenue of the Americas, and there's empty. And I'm going, is this a dream? And
It's unreal.
It was incredible. People walking around with these masks, and I'm not judging it. I'm just saying it was a strange time. I was able, vis-a-vis the computer and the telephone, to continue doing my work. Everybody was working from home, of course, but every call I got, thing people would say is, I am so stressed, almost from the minute I woke up till I went to sleep. Was I feeling it too? Of course, you had to. So I thought, let me put the book together about stress. So, there are 4 levels, and I want to put something in here that I think will be helpful to people. The patterns come in the 4th level, but I'm going to start. The first level is called eustress, and it's EUSTRESS, which is good stress. It's the stress before you have to present it at a conference. It's the good stress when you're dating somebody and you're going to meet them for the first time. It's somebody, all the actors and that I read about, especially on Broadway. It's like, well, how do you feel right before you go on stage? Oh my God, I can feel it in my body. I can barely breathe, but but it's good because it keeps us standing up and moving. So not all stress is bad. So that's eustress. The next stress, of course, is acute stress. And acute stress is what happened to me when I fractured my wrist, and I did a swan dive and hit the ground. And I had to do some work on my memory of that, because I really thought I was going to die. I mean, I hit so hard, and I remember thinking, is this the end? And it wasn't. Obviously, I'm here talking to you. But that's acute stress. Acute stress is, you're driving and boom, you hit that tree and you say, I know it wasn't there 2 seconds ago.
Right.
And that leaves us with it's one of those inhale and you forget to exhale. After I fractured my wrist and I had this bad fall, taking out the trash, for crying out loud. I could blame my husband, but it's not worth it. It won't get me anywhere. But anyway, there was a patch of mud. It had rained during the day. It wasn't raining, but there was a patch of mud, and it was like black ice. I couldn't see it, and I slipped on it. So that wasn't that long ago. But that's acute stress. And you really inhale and you forget to exhale, and you have to learn how to exhale again. If you don't, it goes into chronic stress. And chronic stress is the stress that we work with now. It's the chronic stress is we take lots of medication for it, or we take too much alcohol, or too many things we smoke that, make us forget about it for the minute. But it's and I want to put this in. There's a process. It's called EMDR. Are you familiar with that by any chance?
Sure. Yes.
Okay. Well, the wording of it for who's one, what the heck does that mean? It's a big long thing called eye movement desensitization and revitalization. And in the work I do, I have found it to be incredibly effective when we're in the chronic stress or the acute stress. You need a little bit of time before, a week or two. You can't do it the day of, the next day, because I tried it on myself. It didn't work. It needs a week or two before you begin to process it in your nervous system. But there are EMDR people, facilitators all over the country. I believe that it's really important because it will take you from having to move into chronic stress where you're on medication too much. And we did a program in the past with some people in the military called Veterans Unstoppable. And we worked with people who had been in countries at war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the stories are, pretty striking. And they stay often in acute stress. One guy had photos of the truck before him. I don't know how he got it, that had been bombed. And some of his buddies had died in it. And I said, but if you keep playing it over and over, it just keeps that your nervous system is repeating the same thing. And so he had some EMDR done, and it made a difference. So I want to put that in as a process. There are many physical processes that can help with stress. That one to me is one of the best that I know of. And then, of course, you go to the invisible stress, which is the stress from childhood. And right now, trauma is, it's hot. I mean, it's a hot area of topic right now, which is necessary. Sure. And I mean, we're watching, between Ukraine and the Middle East and, places, other places all over the world here, just go to the market. Right. An active shooter. And often the stress from something now will trigger a memory of a stress from childhood. And I believe you have to go back. This is the therapist in me, to go back, to relook at it, to do some EMDR, and to also talk with the people who were, if it's possible, the participants that created the stress. It could have been a mother yelling too much. It could have been a father who, wanted to smack kids around, but to find a way to have the conversations, the adult conversations, and it does begin the release. But it's where the same patterns we see in the workplace show up. Let me give you one quick example. This is a guy, he's now retired, sure, but he was in the Vietnam War, and he was now a senior leader, and they were doing a reorg in this large organization. And one day his wife called me and she said, Sylvia, I don't know what to do. I had met her once or twice. She said, he comes home from work and he'll sort through the mail just to kind of get his mind neutralized. And he bursts out crying. And this guy was not a crier. Trust me on that. And he says, he would keep saying to her, I can't do it. His job was totally safe. And she kept saying, you can't do what? And he'd say, I don't know. So she said, will you talk with him? So we were talking, and I said, these are the kind of questions that you ask. Where were you at another place in time where you felt you couldn't do something? And people will either answer or not, but it can't be a yes or no question. Okay. So I want whoever's listening to this to get that. And I finally was able to take him back to a time in Vietnam where 2 or 3, of the superiors had been killed. And he was now in charge of his group, battalion. I don't know what I would call it, but his group. And they said, we know you will keep us safe. Those were the words. And they went out, and half of them got killed. And now this is years later, and he's in a business situation where they're simply moving people around to different parts of the organization. And the people he worked with or was friendly with would say, we know you will keep us safe. And once he was able to connect that, and he said, I can't keep them safe. I said, then tell them. That's not your job. Your job is to help the new organization be developed. And I will tell you, we had one session where we were on the phone because we were in different cities. He just cried and cried, but it was like, my words, the part inside that had frozen was beginning to defrost. And he saw,
Wow.
So there's always these connections. And if we look at that in the workplace, we will have a much more effective group of people to work with. I've seen that, Jeff, where as a team works together, by the end of the year, the bonuses are sky high. I'm not doing it for the bonuses, but the bonuses happen.
Of course. Well, as leaders, as we see or start to recognize maybe some limiting patterns, what are some practical strategies we can use to break those patterns and then transform them?
Well, what I'm going to say, a lot of people will resist, but I believe that we have specific actors in our own personal plays. And I believe that you can't just meditate it away. A lot of people have attempted. I think meditation's great, but I haven't seen it so that the changes are transformative. They're helpful. People are more peaceful, but it's like, if you have a parent, a sibling, a neighbor, whoever, who has in some way hurt you or you felt hurt by them, is to go back and have a healthy conversation. It's not necessarily about blaming and judging, because we tend to blame and judge, and it's not the best way to go. But to tell, it's back to telling the truth. And remember, telling the truth is not spilling your guts. And if we can go back and talk to someone, we can start in present time and then go back. And then the big question is, well, what do you do if somebody died or they're out of your life? You do your best to find them. I mean, my father died suddenly of a heart attack when I was 14. And as I was starting to understand this and begin to work with this process, I couldn't talk with him. He wasn't around. But I went and I literally sat on his grave for an hour and had but I went to the last place that we were to get, before he was buried. Did it make a difference? I think it did. If he were alive, I would have had to say, what was in the way of? It's not about blaming and judging. It's about clarifying and transforming. So I really, a lot of the self-growth, the personal work that's being done doesn't lead you to have the active conversations with the people. If they're out of your life, find them. And if they don't want to talk to you, let me give you one quick example. This is back in my therapy days, but it's very powerful. There was a young boy. He was about 14, I guess, and he was in foster care, and he was a hellion. And he did not know where his father was. So with the social worker, we found where the father was. And I said, would you like to meet him? He said, he won't want to meet me. I said, well, that's his problem, but if you would like to meet him, we'll set it up. And he said, well, Sylvia and Nancy, the social worker, he said, what would I say to him? Ask him, tell him who you are and say, can you help me understand why you didn't want me in your life or what happened? However, we took this kid, and Nancy and I sat in the car across the street, watched him go up, knock on the door. The guy opens the door. He's there for under 5 minutes. comes back in the car. We said, what happened? He said, it was a mistake and he should never have impregnated my mother and he didn't want anything to do with me. And my heart dropped and I thought, oh my God, what did we do? What a horrible thing. The change in him because he now knew. And later, I followed him when he was in his 20s. He wrote a letter to the same man telling him how heartbroken he had been, but that it had at least made him strong enough to know it's better to find the source and tell the truth. And, and I lost contact with him. But I really believe that it's in the action component of conversation, dialogue, if you will, that change happens. I hope what I'm saying is making sense. It does to me, but
yes.
You can say no, it's
does.
not making sense.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah, and in that case, just really just bringing the closure. Now and can move on. It's not an unknown anymore. And I think people can deal with bad news a lot better than silence or the unknown. Because then we just make up crazy stories in our heads. So having those conversations, that happens in the workplace all the time. Just having that open dialogue in a conference room or with a coworker, and sometimes hard conversations, but just knowing where you stand and having that closure instead of just the crazy stories in our head, and you find out, oh, that's it. And maybe it's something we can work out. So maybe it's something that we can't, but at least we have that closure and we know and can move forward.
Absolutely. And it's that I never thought of it that way before. There was I'll tell you one more. I don't know if we have any more time. We're almost done, huh? I tell you one more quick story.
Go ahead.
This was a business unit of a fairly large organization. And, the guy in the business unit who was doing all the finance stuff said, I can't work with her, his boss. She's too bossy. She's over communicating. It's driving me crazy. So I said, tell her. He said, I don't know how to tell her that, Sylvia. She won't listen. We're in a business meeting and everybody was saying we need to talk with each other differently. And he was able to say to her, I find you to be too overbearing as a boss with me. And I know what I'm doing. And she got quiet. I had done a lot of work with her. And she said, I just want you to know that I was an only child till I was 13. And then my mother had another child. And he was like a son to me. I could boss him around all the time. And she said, I'm beginning to realize that I just boss everybody around too much. And you could feel the whole room exhale. And then we had a break and he said, but it's never going to really change. I said, well, you're part of the dynamic. What do you think you can do? We came up with the idea. Remember, he was doing finance. So we got a pencil, and the deal was, you write with a pencil and you can erase with a pencil. It has an eraser on the end, that whenever she would start to, it was a conditioned response, become too intent, too micromanaging, that he would hand her a pencil. He didn't have to say anything after that. He knew that she had that tendency and he would just hand her a pencil. And within 3 months, he didn't have to hand her pencils anymore. She backed off a little bit and he became a little more assertive.
That's great.
It's a dance. She backed off so he could become more assertive. If he hadn't said anything, she would have stayed there. It's a different dance, but an unhealthy dance. This was a much healthier dance. So that's it. No more stories.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, where can people learn more about you online?
Well, they can go to my website, which is www.ceoptions.com. So it's CEOPTIONS.com. And check out what's on there. And if anybody has anything they'd like to ask or of me personally is I love to get emails from people, and especially the quality of your website, your podcast is so excellent. It's Sylvia with a Y, Sylvia at ceoptions.com. And of course, the books are online and at Amazon. So thanks.
And we'll be sure and link that in the show notes, along with the 13 types and what I am or what I think I am. So I'll make sure and put that in the show notes as well.
So I'm going to look and see. You didn't want to say it, but you're going to look at them and decide. Thank you. You've been a great interviewer. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Sylvia. It was such a great conversation. I appreciate you being on SaaS Fuel.
Enjoyed it. Thanks.
Thanks again, Sylvia, for coming on the show and sharing your insights and resources. So it's really, really good and changes the way that I think about workplace baggage. How about you? Well, you can learn more about Sylvia at ceoptions.com. As always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And of course, be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. Full episodes, video shorts, training, some outtakes, quite a bit more over there. So check that out. It's at Champion Leadership is our channel on YouTube. And thought leaders share. I bet you're one. Share this episode with a business leader with a growing team. It's sure to help them out now and later. And everyone who shares this week gets a drama detector drone. This flying gadget autonomously flies around the office, identifying hot spots of potential drama and diffusing them with a calming mist and lighthearted music. or just maybe do what Sylvia says instead. Join us next Tuesday, where our founder is Sean Malone, founder and CEO of FlowChat. He's a multi-time founder who's on his way to turning FlowChat into a unicorn. So listen in and put his strategies to work in your SaaS. It may be easier than you think. And next week on our SaaS Fuel Expert Series, we have Richard Harris, go-to-market and sales expert. He's coached the sales teams at Zoom, Salesforce, Human Interest, and Gainsight on how to ask the right questions at the right time. We'll dig into that so you can do that too. I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/SaaSfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.